RNG mechanics in video games has been around for decades. The concept of RNG first appeared in games like Pac-Man on the Namco Pac-Man arcade system back in the 1980s. When people first played Pac-Man, they would notice that pesky orange ghost named Clyde who would appear to be moving randomly. Of course, back then, this level of random was merely advanced programming to give off the perception of random. Clyde really was following another ghost by the name of Blinky, the red ghost, whose goal was to always chase Pac-Man. The game further sold the trick of random by having Clyde run away from Pac-Man if he's within 8 tiles of him. People playing the game back then were too busy to notice the behavior of Clyde, and the illusion of random held. But what about modern gaming? Can modern games use random and random generation to enhance their gaming experiences? Before I answer that, I think I should dive a little deeper into what RNG actually is. RNG is a game term that is an acronym for Random Number Generator. A computer can't generate the completely random numbers on its own, so it uses complex algorithms designed to get as close to random as humanly possible. So technically, when a game boasts it has random elements at play, they're lying to you, as it's not true random. But maybe the illusion of random is all we really need anyway. However, the thing is, RNG is something that's truly been more of a tool that helps the developer, rather than a tool that brings joy to the player. If a developer is using RNG in procedural generation, this might spell disaster for us gamers. Let's rewind the clock back to 2006, where developer Bethesda Softworks had to rely on their own take on procedural generation to create their world of Citadel for their game, Oblivion. Bethesda relied on procedural generation to create the hills and the mountains and the forests that you see sprinkled throughout their game world. It worked well enough, but years later they would get criticized for the poor implementation of the terrain they created. Most players, including myself, would find us doing rapid hops to scale these unscalable mountains, or find ourselves getting clipped into the terrain. Not to mention the game's environments looked much worse than other games at the time. But that was back all the way in 2006, and random generation technology has certainly improved, right? While random generation technology definitely has improved, I believe the core issue of random in games is how it's used and why it's used. RNG is a cause for a shallower experience than open world games. Look at No Man's Sky, a once holy game hyped from the heavens to have endless hours of content that in reality left us a vast sea as deep as a puddle in terms of things to do. Now let's examine a game that's over a decade old and see what it has that No Man's Sky doesn't. If we look at a legendary game like Fallout New Vegas, we can see a town filled with loads of NPCs and dozens of quests to undertake. The game world feels truly alive as people walk across the strip going about their usually nefarious business. When we look at an NPC area in No Man's Sky, the differences are insane. All we have is a small hub where we can barely talk to other NPCs, much less interact with them outside of trading. Where in New Vegas there's always new things to find, No Man's Sky, the only new things you're going to find is the game's 100th take on generating a penis-shaped animal. RNG doesn't fit well in a setting of open world games. People value handcrafted content and eye-catching sights, not barren, samey areas with nothing to gawk at or interact with. The best open world games follow the 40-second rule, where a game world should have the player run into something interesting every 40 seconds. You can't really achieve this with procedural generation right now. But one game maker did realize what random works best in: Kojima. Kojima's debut of PT had RNG mechanics where every run down that airly lit hallway had different things happen. Kojima had his own ghost to put into PT, and this ghost wasn't running away like Clyde. This ghost was purposely chasing the player. This ghost's name was Lisa, and she used the element of random to strike fear into the hearts of the players. Kojima was smart enough to not make this mechanic frustrating, unlike the Alien Isolation developers who made their random scare mechanic maddening to the player. In Alien Isolation, the alien can attack and spawn seemingly at random, causing death to the player and significant progress lost in a level. In PT, if you get caught by Lisa, all that happens is you're in for a good scare. You're still trying to solve the mystery of the demo, but you have none of the frustration of losing progress. It's funny too, because even though Lisa appears at random, she's really been behind the player the whole time. RNG doesn't work well with all settings, but perhaps horror can be its strong suit. The use of RNG to replace handcrafted material and fill open worlds with samey looking uninteractable objects doesn't work. But RNG still has a long way to go, and the future of it might be brighter than we think. I'm looking forward to the next dev who can figure out how to use the power of random best.